Hey, thanks for joining us online here at Flatirons. We're continuing on in our series called Heart Attack. If you have any questions or if we can help you out with anything, you can hop online, flatironschurch.com on our website or any of our social media accounts, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. We're glad that you're here. Hope you enjoy.
What's up, Flatirons? Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Let's all stand and worship together. Your name is power, exalted one, no name is higher. You stand alone, a strong defender. Above you there's no other, above you there's no other, above you there's no other, above you there's no other. I've got a mighty warrior. You're a consuming fire. In victory you reign. We triumph in your name. Jesus, the great commander. You conquered death forever. In victory you reign. Oh, we triumph in your name. You're a consuming fire. In victory you reign. We triumph in your name. Jesus, the great commander. You conquered death forever. In victory you reign. We triumph in your name.
Let's keep singing. Let's sing this out. Your plans for me are far beyond all I desire. You are my hope, a fountain of peace for my heart. Your love for me is greater than any pursuit. You are my joy, God, I delight in your truth. Let's say, I will remember Lord, you are good, and I know forever. Lord, you are good. Lord, you are good to me. Oh, yes, you are. Your plans for me are far beyond all I desire. You are my hope, a fountain of peace for my heart. Your love for me is greater than any pursuit. You are my joy, God, I delight in your truth. And I will remember, Lord, you are good, Lord, you are good, and I know forever. Lord, you are good, Lord, you are good to me. Oh, you're so good to me. How great is your love, oh God. Living water overflowing, never running dry. Overwhelm me, satisfy my soul. Living water overflowing, never running dry. Overwhelm me, satisfy my soul. Your love is abounding, love abounding, all consuming, tide of endless joy. Overwhelm me, satisfy my soul. And I will remember, Lord, you are good, Lord, you are good, and I know forever. Lord, you are good, Lord, you are good. I will remember, Lord, you are good, Lord, you are good, and I know forever. Lord, you are good, Lord, you are good to me. Oh, you're so good to me.
Right. Hey, we're so glad you're here. We're so glad you could spend tonight with us. Go ahead and take a moment to say hello to somebody around you. Shake someone's hand next to you, and you can take your seat.
Hey Flatirons, what's up? Happy Thanksgiving. Everybody doing good? Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I had a great one. I went over to Jim's house. He wasn't home, but I was there, and I had a great day. Thank you for that. Hey, I'm thankful that you spent part of your weekend right now with us here. I know you have a lot of stuff going on this time of year, a lot of things to do. Thank you for being here. Today we're closing up a series that's been really good called Heart Attack. That's all about the Sermon on the Mount, and I think today's a really special day, so thank you for being here with us. Couple things. If you guys have been around for any length of time here, you know that our missions partners are incredible organizations all around the world. They're in places in the world that nobody else wants to go to. And we're really careful who we partner with here because we don't have like hundreds of partners or even dozens of partners. We just have a handful of partners, and they're all amazing. So what I want you guys to hear, if you missed the last couple of weeks or even if you heard this, I want to say it one more time. Next weekend, December 1st and 2nd here at Lafayette is the only weekend that we're going to have them with us this year doing what we call Christmas sales. And it's just gifts that their projects make all around the world. Every penny of what they sell in our lobby next weekend goes right to their project. There's nothing coming off the top of it, anything like that. It's all going directly to the work they're doing in these places around the world with vulnerable, hurting people that we all think is amazing and that we get to connect to. So that's only next weekend, December 1st and 2nd in our lobby. So please come check that out. And the other thing is, and I've been hitting this the last couple of weeks as well, but I want to say it one more time at least, is that internships with some of those partners are open right now. So the applications are due December 7th. It's at that link, which you can take a picture of, or you can go online and find it if you need to. But all three of those organizations are incredible. So LIA is in South Sudan, Lusana is in Uganda, and Global Scope is all around the world. They're really looking for people in a season of life where you think missions might be for you. So maybe you're in that space between high school, college, or maybe you're out of college, or maybe you're I don't know, 30 or whatever, and you're just like, I don't know what to do with my life. These are opportunities where you go, if missions has ever been something that you think is maybe for you, they would love to meet you and talk with you. They will be here in our lobby next week and answer questions about that specifically. But if you're like me, like I worked overnight mopping floors at the Albertsons when I was like 18 to 20. You can do better, people. So this is a good opportunity. Go check that out. They'd love to talk with you next weekend as well about all of that. Cool. So hey, as Jim wraps up this series today, he's going to be talking about small groups, and we're going to have some stories of impact out of small groups. And some of you are in a small group. I've heard some really great stories. Some of you thought about it, and you weren't quite ready to do that. Small groups will open up again right after Christmas. So in January, you'll have an opportunity to sign up for a small group again. So if what you hear today, you go, man, I've been looking for that in my life, and I wish I had people like that around me. This is your opportunity to find that circle for your life and for your family. So check that out. You can go online right now and see what it's all about if you want to. But those signups do start back up in January. Okay? Cool. Hey, I'm going to call my friends up here. Just real briefly, if you guys have been paying attention to some of the stuff going on in our country, there's a city called Paradise, California that just had some pretty horrific wildfires sweep through. 90% of that city is gone. These are my friends, the Gallaghers. This is Josh and Aaron and their kids. And they left our church here. They were attending in Lafayette for the last couple of years to become the pastors of the church out there in Paradise. It's the only church that survived this fire. They did lose their home, and they're kind of picking up pieces. But this family right here is on the front lines of the battle in that city right now. There's over 1,000 people missing. Their church is scattered or missing, and these guys are right there trying to do everything they can to be the people that help them pick up the pieces. So I want to pray for them here in a second, but I want you to look at this family. As Josh heads back there on Monday morning, he's going to be living out of a trailer and just trying to help the people from their 3,000-person church pick their life back up at the worst time. He's the hands and feet of Jesus to that community at this time. And I don't know why your church stood, and I'm sure you've asked that question, but I think I have an idea, and it's because God wants to use you to do something significant. And so I just want you to know that we love you and we support you. I want to pray for these guys, and then I'd love to encourage them following that. So, God, I am so thankful today to stand with the Gallaghers, to know that we have people like them that chase after you with everything they have and give back to everybody else out of what you're doing in their life and their heart. And so, God, I pray as he goes back to Paradise this week, and as Aaron and the kids try to figure out what life looks like in this next season with 90% of that town being gone, God, as Josh just chases after his own people and tries to figure out they're okay, what they need, how they can make it another day, another week, I know that some of us in this room have that same thing going on, even if it's just metaphorical. So God, I pray today that we can see a family like this, strong people like this, that look in the face of fear and adversity and say that they choose to follow after you, to go with you, to go into the hardest battles of life because they have you by their side. So God, thank you for them, and I pray all the blessings in Jesus' name. Amen. Hey guys, did you encourage the Gallaghers with me?
Hey, Flatirons, we can encourage better than that. Give it up for this family right now. Come on. There you go. we just all got a little more thankful for what we have, you know. And I met them for the first time last night, and they had 10 minutes to get their stuff together and get out of the house. Their car melted in the garage. They're couch surfing right now in Arvada. If you know of an apartment or a car or something like that, Josh is going to go back and help pick up the pieces. Just out in your lobby, just find your campus pastor and see how I can help. Also, tomorrow on Monday, on all of our social media outlets, there will be steps and ways that you can maybe get connected to them if that really tugged at your heart as well. I love that little family. My favorite part of the video was that little boy just picking his nose the entire time and wiping a booger on his mom. I think that just keeps it real. You know, it's really heavy, and he's like, and his mom's like, stop. Anyway, I love it. It's my favorite part of church. Hey, next week we're going to start this Christmas series. I'm really, really excited about it. But before we do that, here's what I thought I'd do today. I'm going to do something maybe a little bit different. Let me tell you what my goal is. My goal is not to teach you anything new today. And some of you are going, well, what else is new? Shut up. Anyway, here's what all I want to do is I want to go back and I want to review and look at some of the big rocks and big truths that we have been looking at since on Labor Day we started working our way through this famous talk that Jesus gave called the Sermon on the Mount. And we kind of broken it up into different series. But my purpose in doing this, let me tell you what the kind of inspiration to kind of call a time out for this is. So this is a time of year where I have to call the doctor. I have to call Kaiser this week and make an appointment for my yearly physical. I have to have a physical every year for them to give me meds. I'm on meds. I know, you need more. Shut up again. All right. So here's the thing about physicals and checkups. All right, and I can't speak for you ladies. I'm sure yours is as horrific as ours. But like the older you get, the more intrusive they become. Right, just watch all the guys going, yeah. All right, like when we went out for football, track, something like that, in middle school or high school, something like that, we heard rumors about what they were going to do to us, but we couldn't even imagine it. And then we went in there and like, no one's done that. And then you cough, and then you like go out in your car and cry. And it's like, but you made it. All right, you're okay. But then you as you get older and older, like when you turn 40, it's so much more intrusive. And they do things that I never thought a man would do to me ever. And then they did that, and then I went out in my car and cried and told myself I was still a man. But I'm all right. And then, but when I turned 50, man, they just skip all that, just go right to a garden hose and go, wah! And it's really important that we have checkups. That's my point. And no, some of the visitors going, is he always this crude? Oh, just wait, Grandma. Here's the point in all that, right? Is that the reason we go and get physicals and checkups is because we want to see if everything's working the right way. And maybe we had one a year ago, and we want to see if anything's changed for the better or the worse. And then we make a strategy based on, okay, now what do I need to do moving forward so I move to a healthier spot? And that's what's true with our bodies needs to be true with us spiritually as well. And a lot of times at Thanksgiving, it's a good time to call a timeout and go, what's working well? What's not working well? What am I paying attention to? What have I neglected? And I actually am thankful for that. I haven't thought about it until that holiday kind of rolls around. So what I want to do today is I want to look at kind of what Jesus has been teaching us over the last 3 or 4 months. And if you haven't been here for the last 3 or 4 months, you're not going to get lost because I'm going to go back and review each one of them. But then here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you to do. This is the only application today. Then we're going to end with communion here at the end. But the only application is I want you to ask yourself two questions, both of them. The first one is, what difference would that truth make in my life if I actually lived out of it? Now, I'm not asking, do you believe it's true? I'm asking, okay, if what Jesus says is true, I actually made that a part of my life, how would my life be different? All right? Because here's just something I think we all would agree on. What we do reveals what we actually believe. It doesn't matter what you say you believe or sing you believe. If somebody asks you believe in God, you can say whatever you want. Follow me around for a week or two, and you'll see what I believe. Because I act out of what I think actually works in real life. Well, no matter what I say, if I believe that's true, that's how I'm going to act. So if you want to know what I believe, watch me. So the question is, if we really did believe what Jesus says is true actually works in our lives, what would our life look like? Does that make sense? Followed by this follow-up question is, what part of what Jesus says is true do you believe, or maybe have the hardest time believing is true, at least for you? Jesus is going to say something that's true. You're going to go, that probably is true for some people, or other families, or other couples, or other men, or other women, or other circumstances, but I'm not sure that would work for me. So what part of what Jesus says is true do you have the hardest time believing is true for you, and why is that? All I want you to do is look at that. You don't have to do anything with it. It's just kind of going, I have to acknowledge that I have a hard time believing that's true for me. All right. So let's jump into this, okay? So Jesus taught some really, really big, like mind-blowing things that people had never considered before back then, and even some of us who've grown up, in church or outside of church today, we never even thought about it like that. Like Jesus said this. He said that it's possible for ordinary people like us. You don't have to be a super Christian or super spiritual, whatever, but ordinary, like go to work every day, get out of bed, try to make life work. Ordinary people like us to live our life with God. I love this term. To live our life with God in His kingdom. He said, you can live with me in my kingdom. He called it the kingdom of heaven. And here's kind of the thing that blew a lot of our minds. Whenever Jesus says heaven, He's not talking about what most of us grew up thinking. When I hear the word heaven, I think, you mean after my funeral, I go to a Disney castle in outer space and meet Jesus with a bunch of angels playing harp music. That's not even in the Bible. All right? And it's certainly not what Jesus was referring to when He says, I want you to live with me in my kingdom of heaven now. He's talking about the space, the air around your head where God is right now in your life right now. He wants to go to work with you. He wants to go to school with you. He wants to be in your marriage with you. He wants to walk through your divorce with you. He wants to be in your addiction with you. He wants to walk through life with you right now. And He says, if that's possible, if it's really possible for you to live your life, again, as you are, to live your life with God in His kingdom right now, He says this, and the Bible word is, you might want to repent. And that just means this. If all that's true, you might want to rethink how you think about everything. If it's possible for normal people like us to live with God when we go to work or school or wherever we're going to go for the rest of the day and do that with God, I might want to rethink how I've been thinking about all the most important parts of my life. At least take a look at them. And that whole process of rethinking everything, we call it spiritual formation. I'm trying to get to know the real Jesus, not necessarily the one I was raised with or the one that got shoved down my throat and I got drug off to whatever, all right? I'm getting to know the real Jesus so I can actually begin to think like He thinks. I want to have the mind of Christ. So this is kind of the metaphor we've been using. If this is a rope, this is everything I believe. You say God, this is what I think of. You say Jesus, this is what I think of. You say marriage, this is what I think of. When I look in a mirror and see me, this is what I think of. When I see people like that, this is what I think of. And now I'm starting to get to know Jesus better, and He has different thoughts on some of these things. And actually, as I'm getting to know Him better and trusting Him more, I'm becoming more and more willing, and this is where we're going to end today, to let go of some of these ideas, rethink them, and take hold of His ideas and start living out of that. Now, let me just ask you, everything I've said so far, do you believe that's true? And how would your life be any different if you actually believed that when you get in your car or truck here in about 40 minutes, that God was with you? And as you face relatives and marriage and kids and parents and all the things that you have to face later today, you didn't have to go through it all by yourself, but God was with you in it. Would it make a difference? Would it cause you maybe to rethink how you're going to spend the rest of your day? I don't think about it. So let's go back to this famous Sermon on the Mount. Jesus has been walking around Israel for a few weeks. He got baptized. He's got a few followers, all right? And he's been teaching people. He's been healing people. He's been feeding people. Some people who come to him, they have demons in them. He cast them out. And he's getting a big crowd just following him around to see what he's going to do next. And so this is where we pick up in this famous Sermon on the Mount. Jesus went up on a mountainside, and he sat down, and his disciples came to him, and he began to teach them, all right? Now, so the disciples are his followers, but big crowds of people came to him. He began to teach them. And we spent a couple weeks looking at who them was. Do you remember who they were? It's a Hebrew word. It's Anawim. And this is really, really important. Anawim translates out of the Hebrew, throwaway people. The people that came out on that hillside that day to listen to Jesus kind of teach us something about God, all right, that we never thought of before. They weren't religious people. They weren't like sophisticated people. They weren't people that had their act. They were the throwaway people. They were believed and they believed this because people had told them this, their families had told them this, religion had told them this, that somehow they were so bad, they were disqualified from being with God. They had committed too many sins, they'd broken too many laws, they hadn't done things the right way, and God had no use for people like them. Religion had no place for people like them, and that would explain why their life was so bad. They actually did the math in their head and says, the reason I have cancer is God hates me. The reason my kid died in a car wreck, camel wreck, whatever, right, is because I did something wrong, and this is God punishing me. And you know what? That's not an ancient belief. There's a lot of us that we do that math every time. What did I do wrong that God did this to me? That must make me a throwaway person. My circumstances are the result of my sin. And Jesus says, not necessarily. As a matter of fact, I'd like to talk to the Anawim. And he starts with like this, and I love this. This big word. He says, blessed are, all right? And blessed, the Greek word is makarios, all right? Living the blessed kind of life, connected to and in intimate conversational friendship with God. He looks at these throwaway people and goes, I'd like to make an announcement to you, so you might want to rethink everything, is that I would actually like to live an intimate friendship with you for starting now, going past your funeral, forever. And let's get more specific. He looks around the crowd and goes, blessed are remember this, the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. What's poor in spirit mean? I grew up saying, blessed are those who are really humble and they know that they need grace. Absolutely. Here's what Jesus was talking about. Blessed are those empty, broken people who look inside and there's just nothing going on. They're just spiritually empty. They really believe that they have nothing really worth of anything to offer to God. I'm broken, I'm a mess, I'm jacked up, I'm screwed up, I'm sure that God hates me. And Jesus goes, excuse me, I would like to invite you to come and live with me in my kingdom forever. The kingdom of heaven is yours. And here's the thing that just blew their minds. It's going to blow some of our minds too, is I want you to come as you are. I don't want you to quit doing that. I don't want you to start doing more of that and make me promises that you'll never do that again. I want you to come, mess and all, anawim and all. I want you to come and live in my kingdom with me because Jesus knows what all of us know. If we could have fixed our lives on our own, we already would have. But there's some parts of our life that the only way they're going to come back together is if we do it with God in his kingdom. He says, hey, Anawim, why don't you just come live your life with me? Now, do you believe that's true? You wish it was? Wouldn't it be awesome if it was? Why can't it be true for you? Think about it. He didn't stop there, right? I think he looked around the crowd and he saw a bunch of people with really puffy, swollen eyes because they've been crying for several days or weeks. And he goes, hey, I want to talk to you. Blessed are those who mourn, for in my kingdom you shall be comforted. Blessed are those who have experienced the death of the most important people and relationships and hopes and dreams. You've seen it all crucified. Blessed are you who just saw your life burn down. Blessed are you. Here's what I mean. Bring that mourning and that loss and that brokenness, bring that into my kingdom. And in my kingdom, I can give you comfort that you cannot find anywhere else from any other human being, from any substance, from any activity that you try to prop your life up with. Bring your mourning to me, and I'll give you comfort in my kingdom. Don't you hope that's true? Because we look for comfort everywhere but the right place. And Jesus says, just bring it to me. And in my kingdom, I will put your heart back together. How about this? Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And let me tell you how that translates. Remind you that, all right? Blessed are those who have been thrown aside, cast aside, kicked aside. Blessed are those people who say, you don't have a voice. Blessed are those people who don't think they matter. And the reason you don't think you matter is because everybody in your life has told you you don't matter. Hey, blessed are you, because in my kingdom, everybody matters. As a matter of fact, in my kingdom, my Father will make sure that you're his child and you have everything you need, up to and including the earth. God will take care of you in my kingdom. Hey, meek, don't you need a place to know that you matter? And Jesus says, with me you do. Don't you hope that's true? And why can't you get there? There's a reason. How about this? I love this one. I love all of them, but I like this one lands. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for in my kingdom you shall be satisfied. Blessed are you, and some of us know what this feels like. You see something going on, and it happened, and somebody needs to pay. Somebody needs to make that right. Somebody needs to stop that, and we need to even the score because that's justice, and justice needs to be served. And I look around for justice, and nothing is happening. Nobody seems to care about it, and it's like a pit in my stomach. It's like an ulcer. It's just gnawing at me, and I want it to be right. And Jesus goes, listen, I understand. I understand being not treated fairly. I understand being blamed for things that are not your fault. I understand when things are not right. Just listen, I got that. You bring that to me, and I will satisfy that gnawing that you cannot satisfy on your own. I'm not going to explain to you how I'm going to do that. You just got to trust me. I've got that. You can come with me. I'll make it right. Do you believe that? And wouldn't your life be much better if you didn't have to go around and pay everybody back all the time? And Jesus says, it's me. I've got it. How about this? Blessed are the merciful, for they shall be shown mercy. And here's what it's not. Merciful is not, if you become a more merciful, forgiving, loving person, then Jesus will let you into his kingdom. That's not how, Jesus doesn't cut that deal. What Jesus says is, why don't you just come as you are into my kingdom, and when you're in my kingdom, I promise, you'll be so overwhelmed with the love and the mercy and the forgiveness that God gives to you, all of a sudden you're going to find yourself being the kind of person that actually hands out mercy. Well, you didn't used to be like that. What happened? I'm starting to understand how much God loves me, and here's some for you. Right? You know what? You know when you become a more loving person? When you know you're loved. When you know when you're willing to pass out forgiveness, when you understand how much you've been forgiven. Right? And the reason that you don't pass out forgiveness is because you think you're better than you are, and you're just kind of self-righteous, and so you don't think you have to forgive anybody. That doesn't really work, does it? But come into my kingdom. You'll be overwhelmed with mercy, and you'll just pass it out. This is given. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. And pure in heart sounds so great, doesn't it? I want to be pure in heart, but here's my story. The more I try to be pure in heart, the more I realize I'm not pure in heart at all. Anybody else? I mean, I try to be good, and I look in the mirror going, are you pure? You know, you're not pure today either, all right? I try to do the right thing. I try to make it right. I try to do my best. I make Jesus' promises. This is what every communion service in my life has been about. Rehashing my sins from the week, giving Jesus a promise. I'll do better this week if he'll give me another chance, and I'll do better, I promise. And the next Sunday I take communion again. It's the same old thing, all right? I try to be pure. The more I'm pure, try to be pure, the more I understand I'm just not. I love this translation of that one. Blessed are the OCD. Isn't that good? Here's what I mean by that. Blessed are those who are absolutely convinced if I don't do it right, in the right times, in the right order, someone will die. You know what I'm talking about, right? I've got to get this right. I've got to get this fixed. I've got to get this figured out. I've got to fix this, do this, whatever, or the stakes are so high. And you're killing yourself, and you're worrying yourself, and you're killing everybody around you. And Jesus goes, let me tell you what, you bring that OCD, you bring that, I've got to be pure, you bring that into my kingdom, and you know what you'll see? The face of God, and all of a sudden things will come into perspective. I'm going to be fine. Whether I touch it 5 times and turn around 3 times, or if I go in and out the door the right way, or if I make it, get all the germs off it, whatever, you know what? I'm going to take a breath. I see the face of God. I'm going to be fine. Don't you hope that's true? And if you have a problem with it, where do you get stuck on that? See, this is a great one for Thanksgiving. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. You know what he doesn't say? Blessed are the peacekeepers. That was Thanksgiving. Right? We just try to keep peace. We all had a family meeting Wednesday, didn't we? Okay, so Aunt Mary's coming over. Do not say anything about her friend, all right? Or do not bring, you know what I'm talking about, right? Do not bring up this. Do not bring up politics. Do not bring up this. Do not bring up that. If you do that, here's what we're going to do. Here's our Thanksgiving plan. We're just going to keep the peace, and we're going to act like we like each other, at least through dinner. And then the wine's going to flow, and then the gloves come off, and here we go. All right, it's Merry Christmas. But that's not what he's talking. Not peacekeepers. See, peacekeepers just try to avoid the conflict and just act like everything is okay. Jesus says, peacemakers look and go, everything's not okay, and I'm going to step into the fight. I'll probably get shot from both sides, but I'm going to try to bring these things back into the way God wanted them to be. Shalom, peace, as God meant it to be. And people who do that, Jesus says, in my kingdom, you're like me. You're like a son of God. By the way, they crucified Jesus for the same thing, so buckle up. It's going to be hard. But Jesus says this is where it goes. Jesus says this, is that there are times in your life when you're going to try to do the right thing. And everybody's going to understand what he's talking about here. You're going to try to do the right thing. Here's what happened a few weeks ago. Some of you came in here and you heard things about marriage and divorce, and you just said something in your heart, and you went home and you tried it, and you know what? It didn't work. It got worse. You went home and tried to make peace with somebody, and they said, I'm not interested. You're trying to do the right thing, and you got shot from both sides. Jesus says there are days when you're going to try to hold on to God and do the right thing, and you're going to get attacked, persecuted, and lied to and lied about. And we've all been there. And Jesus says this. Here's what God promises in the kingdom. He will take care of you. He said he's not going to say that everybody's going to get along with you. He's not going to say everybody's going to agree with you, and the persecution is going to stop. He says, I will take care of you as you go through everything. In my kingdom, out there on your own, good luck. But in my kingdom, I promise I'll take care of you. See, the first thing that Jesus blows out of the water that causes people to rethink what is actually possible for ordinary people like them to live a with God kind of life is this. And this is going to be new information for some of us. It's going to be really hard for us to believe. The circumstances of our life are not a statement upon God's love for us. The fact that something bad happened to you is not because God hates you. That's what the Anawim believed. We're not Anawim anymore. And the reason everything is so good is not because you're God's favorite, so don't flatter yourself, all right? That the truth is that God loves us not because we've done enough right things, and God doesn't hate us because we've done the wrong things. God loves us in spite of all of our things. God loves us in spite of our circumstances, not because of our circumstances. God loves you in the circumstance, whether it changes or not. See, here's the takeaway for the first half of the semester. In the kingdom, you don't have to do anything alone ever again.
Well, hey, as we've been walking through the Sermon on the Mount over the last couple months, all of our groups have been jumping in together and been having some great conversations around, like, blessed are those who mourn, and blessed are the unweaned, those who are empty. You guys had some great stories you want to share around that.
Yeah, we had a really crazy story about that. So there was this group of people who met when they were in college, and they started coming to Flatirons, and a couple of years went by, and a couple in the group, you know, liked each other, and they got married. And then
that's a great group right there.
Yeah. Right. And then a couple years after that, they found out that they're pregnant, they're gonna have a baby. But then, like 3 months after they found out they're having a kid, the husband was diagnosed with bone cancer. And so he fought, you know, cancer for like 18 months, and he went in for his scan to see if he was clean or not. And they found out that the cancer had gone from his, you know, his bones to his lungs, and he was given like 18 months to live. And so the cancer spread a lot quicker than it thought, and he died 3 months later. But through that whole process, the group really supported and took care of the mom and their little girl. And just a couple weeks ago, they all went up to Rocky Mountain National Park together and spread their ashes, his ashes.
Wow.
So the more I've thought about that story, it's, you know, like, people go through pain and death and cancer and stuff like that all the time. And everyone will have that moment where they face that. But when Jesus says, you know, blessed are those who mourn, for they'll be comforted, you know, I think that's what that mom and that daughter felt by having their group around them to support them.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah. We had a story come out more in regards to blessed are the unweaned, or those who are poor in spirit or empty inside. We had a coach that reached out to us and shared that one of her leaders was woken up just startled, like in the middle of the night, and she turned over and looked at her phone, and there had been a text message on her phone. And the words were very simple, but it said, "If anyone is out there, I want to kill myself." It was from one of the members of the group who hadn't even shown up to the group yet, but she had just already communicated her contact information. And this woman, for whatever reason, felt like, I can reach out to this leader in the middle of the night. And that leader immediately got up and called her and was on the phone with her until 5:30 in the morning. She just listened, and the woman shared with her some of the things that she was walking through in those darkest moments of her life. And she found out the next day she had received a message from the woman that she did indeed attempt suicide that afternoon, but then had returned home about 8 p.m. And then I wanted to honor her exact words, and so I wanted to share with you guys exactly what she said. But she said, "Yesterday the member of my group did indeed overdose and was taken to the ER. She was back home by 8 p.m., but she said she's feeling better and she was going to actually attend the group." And so the next day we heard back from the leader again, and this is what she said. She said, "The member of our group did indeed attend last night. She shared and she's grateful for our group." And then the weekend passed, and we heard back from the leader again that the member had attended church with her that Sunday. They went to lunch afterwards, and she shared with her that she had felt things in that moment on Sunday that she had never felt before. I just think it's a beautiful picture of this woman who was just in a dark place, and she felt like she had a safe place, and she hadn't even attended the group yet, but because she had an outlet and a place to reach out in the middle of the night, and now God is doing something in her heart and in her mind and has brought hope to that situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wanted to tell you both those stories. When I heard them the first time, the first thing that jumped out at me was, I think that young lady who texted in the middle of the night texted the most common prayer of all humanity, and it goes like this: is anybody out there? Right? Because depending on how you answer that question, sometimes you decide if we want to stay alive or not. The other reason is I'm absolutely convinced when Jesus was on the side of that mountain that day, he looked out, he knew everybody's story out there. I think he saw a young mom with a 2-year-old little girl who just scattered the ashes of her husband, and she was trying to figure out, what am I going to do? And she knew help's on the way. I'm going to put a group around you. I really believe that. Get in a group. I'm just going to say it. Get in a group. The worst part about the things that we have to go through are not necessarily the worst things we have to go through. It's doing it by ourselves. And that's what the kingdom's about. So on the Sermon on the Mount, we'll move on, but Jesus is going to answer two big questions that everybody has at one point in their life. We spend a lot of time looking at them. What does it mean to be a good person? What does it look like to live a good life? And when Jesus says the word good, he uses a Greek word dikaiosune, and that is, what is it about God that's good? That word is dikaiosune. And so as we face different circumstances in our life about what we're going to do when we come to that big thing in our life, we want to make sure that on the other side of it, I know I'm a good man or good woman, and that I still have a good life. And so what Jesus spends the rest of the semester we've been looking at is looking at the two ways, we call them two deals on the table, that the people typically kind of approach trying to figure out, am I a good man or woman, and do I have a good life? There's the religious way, and then Jesus says, but I tell you. And the religious way goes like this. There's a list of rules and regulations and religious laws, and you got to do them the right way, enough times in the right order, and if you do that, then you're a good person and you'll have a good life. And they have nothing to do with your heart or what's going on inside or how you feel about other people. It's just about things we measure on the outside. That's called religion. Then Jesus shows up. I want to tell you a better way. I tell you, let's look at what's going on in the heart that actually has overflowed and landed on what's going on in our life. And the metaphor we've been using over the last several weeks in here is, let's go upstream and see what's been happening over the last weeks, months, and decades of our life that flowed all the way down here and landed and caused that to happen. Let's look at that. And again, here's the big takeaway for the last 6 weeks here at Flatirons, and it goes like this. God cares more about the kind of person that we are and are becoming. He cares more about that than what we're doing right or wrong. He cares about what we're doing right or wrong. This is a more important thing to pay attention to. In other words, as you look at trying to figure out if you're a good person or if you have a good life, the best question is not what behaviors did you do right or wrong, because you can measure behaviors and still know you're not good. The better question Jesus would ask is this: what's going on in a person's heart, like upstream, that overflowed out and actually led to that kind of behavior? Let's get the heart figured out, and behavior will take care of itself. So let's look at the heart. So Jesus says, or religion says this: okay, you want to be a good person, have a good life? Do not murder. That's it? Yeah, low bar. Just don't murder anybody. But we all go, I know people that haven't murdered and they're the crappiest people ever. They're not good. Okay. Jesus says, okay, all right, don't murder, right? But murder is not really the biggest problem we have. It's the symptom of a bigger problem. Let's look at this. Let's look at all that built up, unaddressed, toxic anger that continues to build because something or somebody is standing in the way of what you think that you want or believe that you need to be happy, and they're in your way. And then you're angry, and it's building and building and building. Eventually, it's going to come out. So Jesus wouldn't say, why did you murder? Jesus would ask this question. Why do you have so much anger stored up that keeps on murdering the most important parts of your life, the most important people in your life? And the people and parts of our life that keep getting murdered have nothing to do with what we're really angry about. They just get all the fallout. Isn't that true? Is that true for you? And what if we're willing to look at that? Would that change anything? And why don't we want to look at that? Religion says this, just don't say bad things. Don't call people bad names out loud or you'll get in trouble. And Jesus points out that the name calling and saying mean things to people, that's not the big problem. Your bigger problem is this word called contempt. And anger always leads to contempt. Contempt is redefining people as something different and less than who and what God says that they are. And you always find these two. They're always there together. Anger always leads to contempt. So I'm angry because you're standing in my way and I want to do something and you won't let me have it or you won't meet my need, whatever that is. And I'm angry and I want to do something to you, but I can't do what I want to do to you because if I see you as God sees you. So what I do is I redefine you as something different and less than what God says that you are, and now I can do anything I want to you. And here's what we've been looking at. It's really been tough. The people we do that to more than anybody else are the people that we are related to, our family. Folks, we treat our families worse than we treat our dog. We treat our families worse than we treat some of our enemies. We say things to our husbands and wives and our kids and our parents that nobody else would put up with. But somehow we just redefined something and said it's okay. We do it in politics. We do it with groups of people like that. I don't understand why they do that. I think that's gross that they would even feel stuff like that, and I think they should just do it. And so we get mad about it all, and then we redefine them, and then we say the worst things about them. And Jesus says, listen, we got to get to the heart of the issue, and if anything is going to happen in our families, in our marriages, or with people, between people that we see around us in the world, something has to change on the inside, and it's not by passing out a bunch more laws and rules. Our hearts need to change. Jesus says the same thing. We spent a couple weeks on this. The same thing applies to like our sexuality, right? So what's going on with our sexuality? Well, religion says this. Here's all we care about. Just don't commit adultery. Don't have an affair. And that's certainly a good goal, but it's very possible to not cheat on your husband or wife and not commit adultery and not engage in a physical sexual activity with somebody you're not married to and still be just absolutely broken and full of sexual darkness inside. That's just true, because the same truth is true in every area of our life, but it's certainly true with sexuality. And I think you believe it, even if you don't believe in God, I think you'll agree with this. Most sexual brokenness and frustration has less to do about sexuality, right? I mean, you can't look at it and go, it's because I'm a man. That's why I'm all jacked up, right? It's because I'm a woman. This is how women are. No, you can't say that. It's deeper. Most sexual brokenness and frustration has less to do with sex and sexual desires as much as it has to do with questions of worth, value, and power. Our sexual brokenness is based on this. Right? If we're really honest, when we look at it going, why is this all messed up in my life? Because I question my worth, value, and power. In order to feel like I'm a man, or you need to feel like a woman, whatever that is, then I feel like I need this, and I need this to happen, whatever that is. And then when it doesn't happen, then I don't know if I measure up as a man, and that makes me angry. And so it makes me want to do something, but I can't do something because you're somebody that God values, and so I'll just redefine you, and I'll do something to what I want to do to you because you're different. Right? That anger always leads to redefining people so we can do what we want to do. But Jesus says, listen, you're missing the issue. The problem with going on with our sexuality is not our body. It's not our biology. It's our hearts. And Ben he nailed this so perfectly. I mean, Jesus actually says, if lobbing off body parts and gouging out eyes will fix your sexual problems, by all means do that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Jesus says something's broken in our hearts, and that needs to be addressed. Something happened upstream in our life, and it's coming out in sexual brokenness, and we have to look at that, or this will never, ever change, and it's our heart. And probably the one relationship's affected by our heart, Jesus called it a hard heart, more than any other relationship in our life, is our marriage. Our brokenness comes out on our marriage more than anybody else. So let me talk to three groups of people. So if you've never been married before, but you think you might get married someday, write this down. Take notes, okay? If you're married right now, write this down. If you used to be married and you're done with it, just nod your head and agree, all right, with what I'm about to say, okay? So I think I covered everybody, all right? So do you remember, or you're here right now, when you went into marriage, you had such high hopes and dreams. You had this idea, you had this movie playing in your head, you had songs, and you had this concept of what marriage is going to be, and it was beautiful and awesome, all right? And then about, 5 minutes into your marriage, you realize, well, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And so a lot of those hopes and intentions that were really, really good, they turned into demands and expectations. And then when those demands and expectations weren't met the way we thought they were going to be met, we got angry. And then we want to do something to them or with somebody else, whatever that is, we can't. Because we said, I do, and we made a covenant for God and everybody else. And so what we do is that I got to turn this into something else. So I call her a name, or I call him a name. She's a blank. He's a blank. She doesn't meet my blank. He's not available. Whatever that is. And then we redefine marriage as something that we just push an eject button and just bail on it, all right? And so now I've redefined everything. Now I can do whatever I want. And so I jump into pornography, or I have an affair with this person I met at the gym or the office or whatever that is. And then we point to that and go, that's why we got divorced. Okay. That's really not our problem. It just ended up there, right? See, our problem, according to Jesus, is a hard heart that simply overflowed into those behaviors. And that's what's breaking up our families. The events are just like the straw that broke the camel's back. Now, I'm going to ask you, just be honest with your own situation. Am I close? All right, so it's true. And again, we're not beating anybody up for your divorce. That's between you and God. You probably had to, all right? The question we're looking at is, but from now on, I want something better and different. So in order to have something better and different, I have to look at this and not rehash it, learn from it and be forgiven, but now I want to move on to something better. But we come to our point in our life where we're going, okay, that happened. Religion says, okay, you're going to get a divorce. Here's all that matters. There's some religious rules about divorce. Just do it the legal way. And Jesus says most divorces happen not because of that event, but because of the presence of a hard heart. So here's the question they asked Jesus. When can I get a divorce? And again, all of us might have to ask that question one day. Right? And there are some times when you go, today is the day, I have to get a divorce. And you might be right. That's between you and God. So that you work that out, right? But when can you get a divorce? Here's anytime you want. For any and every reason. This is America. You don't even have to have a reason. I just don't want to be married anymore, and you can go file papers, all right? So there's not a lot of point, though, in rehashing all that. Jesus would say is, do you want something better? What do you want? In other words, Jesus would say this. The question is not when can you get a divorce. It's this. Hey, now that you're in the kingdom and you're living your life with God and new things are possible that didn't used to be possible because you're not by yourself anymore, here's a better question. What's your vision? What's your intent? And what's your strategy to build and experience a great marriage from now on? A great life from now on? What's your plan?
I feel like that's just the beauty of groups in general is the safety. It just goes to show that we were never meant to do this life alone. That all of these life situations, like Caleb said, are going to happen, but what if they happened and we were all alone and we had nobody to turn to? Like, what if that wife and that kid were still going through cancer, that their husband still got cancer and passed away, but she didn't have to do it alone? Or this woman who is facing suicide, or even just a dark thought or insecurity, like those things are still gonna happen, but we actually don't have to do it alone anymore. And what a beautiful depiction of the kingdom. And that's my favorite thing about groups, is that whether people have opened up yet in groups or not, they have a place to do it eventually. And it's riskier that way. It's riskier to actually say what's going on at a deeper level. It's riskier to say something that's going on in our heads that's a really dark place. But when you take the risk, it goes to show that the Lord is so faithful to meet you in that place when you're surrounded by a community of people. And I love that. I think it's a great depiction of the kingdom.
Yeah. We had a story that was like along those lines of, I heard about a couple that right before this series started, some things came out and found out that there was an emotional affair taking place. And the way that I heard them tell it was that it all kind of came to a head right before this Sermon on the Mount series started. And as we jumped into the series and started talking through some of the Beatitudes, like around ideas of like being pure in heart, and then as topics like anger started coming out, and then as we jumped into like marriage and divorce, as we have over the last couple of weeks, all of a sudden this couple's going, man, God's talking like directly to us right now. And through the group experience, they said, you know, we weren't sure if we could share this or not, but we took a risk, and we just didn't want to have power over us anymore. And so they opened up and they shared in a safe place with their group what was going on in their life and what they were walking through. And they said that they were surprised that they weren't alone. They go, we expected to be the only ones, but there were other people who go, yeah, me too. I'm walking through that same thing. And what's been really cool, I think, for this couple is on the back end of that, the level of support that they've gotten from the group, and then all of a sudden feeling like that they're not the weird like couple that's walking through something really hard and they're alone in this anymore, but they're going, there's other people who are, and they even said we were the model Christian couple before all of this, and we're realizing that in the middle of this we're all unwing people in some ways. And it's far from resolved, but they would say that Jesus is 100% helping put things back together. It's changing them at a heart level.
Yeah, and we all have that thing in our lives, don't we? Like that thing, and it's kind of tied to this anger or this contempt or this bitterness or this something that we've just suppressed for so long, that we've shoved down, that we don't even know it exists anymore sometimes. But groups provide us that space to first maybe explore it for the first time. Like, this is the anger, this is the resentment, the bitterness, that thing that I've held on to for years, is maybe just coming to the surface for the first time in a lot of these people's lives. Or maybe they're starting to explore that, wow, in the kingdom, God actually has something better for me. Outside of the kingdom, I can't actually resolve my anger. I can't resolve my resentment. But inside the kingdom, God has proven himself faithful, and he's going to be faithful again. And he's going to use normal people with the same brokenness and the same problems to fulfill those promises. And I love that about groups.
Yeah.
Me too.
So one of my favorite moments in the last 6 weeks here at Flatirons was, so we started the marriage and divorce series, or kind of 2-week mini-series on that. On a whim, I said, okay, if you're comfortable with this, raise your hand. If you've ever been divorced, your parents have been divorced, your kids have been divorced, or you have a brother or sister that have been divorced, raise your hand. And like 99% of us just went, like that. So that was my favorite part. It kind of was, because it led to this email I got later that week from this mom who's going through a divorce, who brought her 10-year-old daughter, who was really struggling with her parents' divorce, in the room that day. And when she looked around the room, she actually broke into a smile. Because, that's what they were talking about in the video, I'm not alone, I'm not the only one. She thought she was a freak. She thought nobody understood. See, in the kingdom, it's just a bunch of ordinary, normal people linking arms together and going, let's run after Jesus and take care of each other. That's what we're going for. Give me 5 minutes, we're going to take communion. And all this stuff that we've been talking about today or the last several weeks, what part of it do you, more than anything else, wish was true? Because if it was true, man, it would just change everything, wouldn't it? And then what's standing in the way of that for you? Because there's a reason, and you just got to look at it. Last week, Ben kind of wrapped up the teaching part by talking about, here's the secret, like, to any relationship that matters. What would happen if we begin to live our lives, living lives of integrity? Where we actually, when we say yes, we mean yes. When we say no, we mean no. Because there's just safety in that. Right? If you're going home to somebody who's they're keeping their word, there's just safety in that. And if you look at anything you have a problem with, it's because of hypocrisy. It's what you have a problem with organized religion, right? I had a great talk with this kid in Spain. He just hates the church, not because of Jesus, but because of the hypocrisy. And I had to look back and go, buddy, I get it. If you look back at your friendships or your marriage or the most important relationships in your life that died, I bet the moment kind of put a nail in the coffin is when you found out they lied, right? So here's how I'm going to tie this in. So what's your biggest problem with God? What are you the most afraid of God about? So I'm going to throw mine out. So I've got these ideas and these thoughts, and they're not perfect. I'm sure that some of them aren't right, but I know them pretty well. This is who I am. This is who God is. This is what I deserve. This is what people are like. This is what marriage is like. This is how I get through the day. This is what's important. This is how I'm going to be happy. And I'm holding on to these. And then I know what Jesus says, and it's different than this, but this is all I know. And he wants me to let go of this and trust him. And so I'm gonna take a risk. I'm going to reach out in my marriage, in parts of my life, and I'm going to let go of this, and I'm going to take. You know what I'm afraid of? Are you going to take care of me? Are you going to be there? I don't know how that. This is a mess, but I know what to expect. I have no idea what happens if I try marriage this way. I have no idea if I say I'm going to express my sexuality or my relationships or my love or I have no idea how to go through a divorce like that. I don't know how to do that. This is really scary. How do I know that God will show up for me? That's my biggest fear. How do I know? And you know what? That makes me normal. And Jesus knew that there'd be normal people like us. And so he had this great idea called communion. He said, days going to come in your life, you're going to go, this is so scary. How do I know I have the kind of God whose yes means yes and no means no? And so Jesus gathered everybody around a table, and he said, everybody take a piece of bread. And this bread in the past it represented the manna that was given to the Jewish people in the wilderness. From now on, this manna, this bread, is my body that's broken for you. Everybody take a bite and remember this night. And they had no idea what he's talking about. And then he poured out wine. He says, everybody take a drink. And they do that every Passover. But he says, from now on, this wine represents my blood that's poured out for you. Why? Because the wages of sin is death. And I promise you, I would do everything necessary to make sure that you have what you need in my kingdom. And so this wine is going to be my blood. And they had no idea what he was talking about. Then they went outside. Jesus was arrested. The next day, they nailed him to a cross. And everybody thought, hypocrite. He said he would take care of us. He said he was God. He said he could deliver. He said all these stuff, and there's dead Jesus on a cross. And they stuck him in a hole, and he was dead Friday, and he was dead Saturday, and then Sunday. Sunday, he came back to life like he said he would, as evidence that everything I said before, I now back up. If I can do this, you can trust me with the rest. And you've got to think, People look back at me and went, I've never seen anybody back up a promise like that. So whatever I'm afraid of right there, all I have to do is take a piece of bread and some juice and go, okay, I got to remember the kind of God I have says yes and means it. Here's the other thing is, Jesus never promises to take away our problems or even change our circumstances. He promises this, that in the kingdom, because of me, on the other side of it is resurrection. I don't know what you're facing. I bet it's death. I bet it's murder. I bet it's anger. I bet it's just dark and broken, and you feel like you're the only one. You feel like you're that little girl in the room going, I'm the only one. And Jesus speaks to you right now and goes, I'm in this with you, and I promise resurrection. Do you trust me? So God, in this time where we're going to take a piece of bread and some juice, and we're going to remember, because none of us are thinking about a hypothetical thing right now. We've got a thing that we have to face today, and we're really, really scared. Will you be there for us? And then we're going to take a breath right now, and we're going to take a piece of bread and a little cup of juice, and remember that you are a God who keeps his promises. Your yes means yes. Yes, you're forgiven. Yes, I love you. Yes, I want you in my kingdom. No, there's no condemnation. No, you'll never be alone again. There's resurrection. So God, in this time right now, will you just teach us how much we can trust you? In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Here at Lafayette, here's how we're going to do this. All right, usually we pass out communion, and you don't have to do any of this if you don't want to, but there's stations around the room, little tables, and you'll find them. Here's what I want you to do before you get up and go to one of those stations. I want you to figure out what that one thing is for you. I need that to be true for me. And here's what's standing in the way of it right now, and have a conversation with Jesus. And then sometime during this song, and you can stand, you can sit, you can leave, you can stay. The music's amazing. You might want to stay. You can go get the communion and come back to your chair. Here's what I wanted to do last night. I wanted to go get a piece of bread and my little cup, and I wanted to go sit in my truck for about half hour, because this brings up a lot of stuff for me, and I need to talk to God about it. And this would be a perfect day for you to do that. It's Thanksgiving weekend. It's checkup. It's time to look at our lives, the Jesus we can trust. So they're gonna play. You sing, you stand, you sit, you go get communion, you leave, you stay, whatever it is. I'm really glad you're here, though. All right.
Praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, oh Lord our God. Oh, praise the name of the cast my mind to Calvary, where Jesus bled and died for me. I see his wounds, his hands, his feet, my Savior on that cursed tree. His body bound and drenched in tears, they laid him down in Joseph's tomb, the entrance sealed by heavy stone. Messiah still and all alone. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise His name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, oh Lord, no Lord our God. Then on the third, at break of dawn, the Son of Heaven rose again. Oh, trample death, where is your sting? The angels roar for Christ the King. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise His name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, no Lord our God. He shall return in robes of white. The blazing sun shall pierce the night, and I will rise among the saints, my gaze transfixed on Jesus' face.
Death could not hold you. The veil tore before you. You silenced the voice of sin and grave. The heavens are roaring the praise of your glory. For you are raised to life again. You have no rival. You have no equal. Now and forever, God, you reign. Yours is the kingdom. Yours is the glory. Yours is the name above all names. What a powerful name it is. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a powerful name it is. Nothing can stand against. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus.
You guys are welcome to stay in here as long as you'd like. If you want to take communion and come back to your seats and pray with